The main thing people have been saying, who are these guys? Have they ever even competed in the ring?
But they don't really know that we do actually have an extensive amateur career, and we also come from a family of boxers.
My biggest accolades would be being an All-American bronze medalist at the National College Tournament.
My best accomplishment is probably being a state champion 5 years in a row.
Had about 55 victories, two-time national champion. Devin Haney was wearing the exact same belt that I won.
Man, look at that.
Let's look at that real quick. If you want to get started, have your first amateur bout, you don't really need anything else other than a USA passbook. And you want to know what it looks like? I got mine right here.
Go to one of the gyms that you're going to get your ass beat.
Multiple times.
Any advice you guys want to give to someone who wants to start?
If you want to win your first amateur fight, what you have to do is...
Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing, and in today's special episode, amateur boxing. In today's episode, we'll be discussing our family lineage as well as our own personal amateur boxing experience. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, as well as following us on Discord. Everything that I mentioned, as well as our other social media accounts, is down in the description down below. Now, diving into the episode, the main thing people have been saying or questioning about us is, who are these guys? Have they ever been in the gym? Have they ever even competed in the ring, or in an actual fight? And for this episode, it's a very special one. We're here to answer those questions that a lot of people have been saying.
And it's really funny whenever they say that in the comment section, because we have some pretty bold statements that we make in the boxing world. We have our opinions on the boxing world. And every single comment section, they say, who are these guys? Have they ever been in the ring? But they don't really know that we do actually have an extensive amateur career, and we also come from a family of boxers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So before we dive into our own personal amateur experience, let's go a bit, deeper into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's rewind the clock.
Yes, sir. Our boxing experience, or our boxing heritage, stems from our father's side. He had two uncles who competed, not amateur, but competed in the professional ranks. We had two of them. One of them is Facundo El Bronco Rodriguez, and the other one is Benito El Mulato Rodriguez. Mexican heritage we are, and very proud Mexican heritage we are. So these two fighters, I guess, great uncles, I would assume, started our amateur heritage, our family lineage of boxers. Facundo was El Bronco was a super flyweight fighter, back in the 80s and the 90s. He fought. He had around, I think, 13-8 with one draw in there. Mm-hmm. But his most notable his most notable fight, I would say, was fighting against Barrera. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if anyone who knows, if you're watching this, you should know who Marco Antonio Barrera is. And
the Mexican legend.
We're talking about, one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. Of course, Facundo Rodriguez El Bronco probably, didn't stand a chance. He got TKO'd. But it goes to show that, Facundo, or, we have family members that have been able to had the opportunity to fight some of these Mexican legends back in the day, back in Mexico, where they nearly all their fights have been at. So that is a Facundo El Bronco. Next up, we have, I think, the more prestigious, or the more the fighter from our family that we give a lot of homage to, mm-hmm. and the aspect of giving recognition. And that is Benito El Mulato Rodriguez. He also stems from the same place, Tamaulipas, Mexico. And I mean, he had, his. If you look at his record, you're gonna be like, who is this man, right? He had he has a record of 35 wins, 39 knockouts, and 4 draws in there. On paper, you're like, oh, this guy, he's just a journeyman, which may be true, But
what are his best wins?
His best wins. His career-defining win was against Kevin Kelly, man. That's a crazy one too. Honestly, that's a crazy.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly. We're talking about a 5-time world champion. We're talking about a guy that was, one of the elites back in the day. And I'd say Kevin Kelly's most notorious fight is against Nassim Hamed, which, I mean, if you're not recognizing any of these names, we were talking about what in the 90s, 80s.
90s.
Yeah, we're talking about back in the day. These guys were top of the food chain, and Benito fought Kevin Kelly and pulled off the upset victory.
Yes, he did. It took place in Louisiana. And, he was able to get a UD win over Kevin Kelly, which is by far his most notable win in his resume. Not only that, he had 2 fights with Diego Corrales back to back. So even though he lost them, but I mean, I'm telling you right now, we're talking about a fighter who was able to who was given the opportunity to fight big name fighters during the 90s, during the early 2000s, but mainly during the 90s, and I mean, it shows that we had these records, because like I mentioned right now, he's 35 and 39 with 4 draws. I mean, yeah, people nowadays would look at it and be like, oh, like that's a journeyman record, which
it's
is
a
nobody exactly. But when you look deeper into his resume, you're gonna see that like, this guy has legitimate, he has legitimate big names in his record,
legitimate credentials, and even outside of his record, we also see that Benito Rodriguez was a sparring partner to one of the greatest legends in boxing, Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yeah, the picture.
Senior.
Yeah.
Senior, yeah, not junior.
Not junior, no, but senior. We're talking about senior. I mean, both of the fighters, Facundo El Bronco and Benito Mulato both have they both have pictures with Chavez. With Chavez. I think that's such like an awesome flex to
Mexican icon.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Benito had the unique opportunity of being a sparring partner for Chavez, and I mean, there's pictures to prove it. And
we'll probably pop them up here in the little screen.
But yeah, so it's it's a very unique experience we have coming from our family lineage of professional fighters, and it stems before we were even born. In that essence, we had fighters. Our 2 great uncles had professional fights since the 80s, and it stemmed for nearly over 10 years of professional boxing. So that's a very long career to have, and especially for Benito El Mulato, he had over 60 fights, man. I'm telling you, that's an insane amount of fights to have. He traveled the world. He traveled not only in Mexico, but he went over to Panama. He went to the USA. He went all over the place to fight, and it shows I think he's a prime example of the Mexican warrior, doing, fighting in order to provide for his family, to provide for everything that, is his main source of income.
And he might not get the mainstream notoriety, but he definitely does get the local notoriety. Benito Rodriguez actually has a corrido about him.
That's the funniest part, man.
I ain't gonna lie, that shit is kind of hard.
They go hard.
They go hard. It's one of those old school Mexican corridos. That just pays homage to him. So it shows, maybe you're not going to hear about this guy, like a Julio Cesar Chavez, a Barrera. But he is a guy that locally was well known and locally did some pretty big things.
And more importantly, he's part of our lineage, man. I'm not going to lie. That's a big flex to have.
Yeah, so basically, we were kind of bred into the Mexican boxing heritage.
Yes, sir, man. But their career, they had careers lasting from the 80s to the early 2000s, before they decided to hang up the gloves. But there was some time in between there where, our father, I would say, decided to also pick up the gloves, he had a couple, I don't remember how many amateur fights he had. He didn't have too many because of family obligations. But he was able to, at least be able to tie up the gloves and get into the ring and have an actual legitimate fights in the amateurs. So I mean, at least we have our father, who was also an amateur fighter in that essence.
And he fell in love with the sport. He showed it to us. And he also raised us in a boxing experience. Growing up, all three of us would watch boxing fights, from Manny Pacquiao, De La Hoya, all these guys. We'd watch them growing up, and this would go into our experience, our consciousness, and everything. So even though he might not have been a professional boxer as the rest of our uncles, but he was a guy that loved boxing and showed us the ropes and pretty much everything there is to know about the boxing lifestyle.
Yeah, he played a big, our father played a big pivotal role in the aspect that, I mean, when we all entered the amateurs, he was our coach. He was our trainer. He was the man who was in our corner for every single fight. A trainer who was doing pads with us, who was making us work and to get ready for fights and stuff like that. So he was he's not one of, but he is the most important figure in our amateur and professional career. But now that we got past our family lineage, where essentially our boxing blood comes from, I think now it's time for the fans, or not the fans, but the viewers.
No, the fans, man. The fans. They love this show.
Yeah. for the people to see where we come from, where what our experience is, because we can say a lot of things behind the screen, but I mean, if we I guess a lot of people demand actual proof of or action, that we actually do what we may talk this type of way, but do we actually compete and do that? Well, here it is, man. So I guess I'll start off, Pablo. And compared to Asael and Rudo, I had I would say the least amount of amateur experience. I started off pretty late. I was more of a soccer guy, football, trying to be like Messi for a while. But so I started off competing very late, and I was only able to get around 9 fights in my amateur career. But I think I have the unique experience of being, not only competing for USA Boxing, but competing for the university, college level. And it's, a lot of people don't really know about the college level of boxing. And I had the unique experience of being able to compete. So, I've competed in not just, your regular amateur shows that you have, a lot of people who are used to those, but also had the experience of competing in the amateur shows. And let me just tell you right now, man, when it comes to these amateur shows for USA Boxing, not sanctioned by an actual university, they're so disorganized.
Yep. It's not even funny. It's just bad.
It's true, because they be saying, on the flyers, or when they're promoting, they're gonna be like, they say, doors open at 3, first bout is at 4. But then you get a 4 and they haven't even started.
Nope.
It's not until maybe 5, pushing 5, that they decide to start the entire show. And I mean, we've been to many, I would say hundreds of amateur bouts and amateur shows, and I don't remember any single one that started on time.
No, none of them. And a little bit of a background information on the way you just said. It is true. When we're talking about amateur boxing, usually what we're talking about is USA Boxing, which is an overseen body of amateur boxing. It's the most prestigious one. It's the one where all the great names fight. Every single boxer fights on USA Boxing. But there is a different sanctioning body or organization that oversees the collegiate level, which is what you are getting into. I'm not actually exactly sure what organizing body oversees the college level, but they oversee it. They're two distinct organizations. And for the college level, these guys actually know what they're doing. These guys actually run shows on time. These guys actually, have things organized. Whereas in USA Boxing, in our experience, it's been they're good shows. They run, but they don't run on time. There's a ton of, every single show that I've been in, there's usually always something in the way, or there's an obstacle that we have to overcome. This sort of thing. So yeah, there is a distinction between amateur boxing or USA boxing and college boxing.
Sticking with that, shows running late and whatnot, not showing professionalism. I feel like just in my experience, what I've seen is that for the most part, when it's a more smaller local show that's putting on a boxing show, they kind of like do run late and stuff like that. But when it comes to the more prestigious, like more of the national tournaments or whatever, they do try to tend to start the first bout at that time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna answer your question. The college the college organization that I fought for was the NCBA, so the National Collegiate Boxing Association, and so that's where I fought under, as well as USA Boxing, because I've had fights on both USA Boxing itself and the college. And I mean, just briefly, my biggest accolades would be being an All-American bronze medalist at the national college tournament, as well as being a state Golden Gloves champion for the USA Boxing. So those are my two biggest accolades, I would say.
What year was that?
It was last year. Yeah, both of them were last year, 2023. So I would say that those two would be my biggest accolades in my pretty short amateur career. But even though it was short, competing wise, when it came to actually training, my boxing experience stems from before even me first stepping into the ring for having a legitimate fight. I've done over 100 sparrings with you specifically, and I've done hundreds of rounds of mitt work and actually training in boxing. So of course you can't really compare a sparring to a fight, but my experience in boxing stems even further back from when I first officially made my debut.
That's a good point, actually, because you don't have that much experience, but you were in the gym with us as well. Me and Rudo actually have a more extensive amateur career. We've been in USA boxing for quite a while longer, but you were all alongside with us as well. You just had a different path to take. But for me, I was in amateur boxing as well. I had around 40 fights, a little over 40 fights. My record was around 30-10, around there. I competed since I was from around 12 years to 18. It was a decent amount of time that I stayed in the gym, stayed active with Rudo, with my father, and we were just, going from state to state, tournament to tournament, trying to find some fights. And I'd say for me personally, probably my best and biggest accomplishment in USA boxing is probably being a state champion 4 or 5 years in a row. And 4 or 5 years in a row, I never competed in Golden Gloves because I was always too young. Golden Gloves, you have to be, I believe, 18 or 17 years old. 18 years old. So I was never able to compete there because, that was kind of where my amateur boxing ended. But I competed in the Silver Gloves. I competed, in Junior Olympics. All those tournaments I competed in. I went to regionals. I went to nationals twice, actually. I went to nationals. So extensive career. I had a blast. Amateur boxing. It really is a fun time. Yeah. But the one thing is, it's a very lonely sport. I feel like boxing is completely different to really a majority of sports, even other combat sports like wrestling. People say that wrestling is a combat sport, but wrestling, the thing with wrestling is you have a whole team with you, right? You have a coach, but you also have a team that's around your side, and you can feel motivated by them, and you can feel inspired by them, and yeah, let's go. With boxing though, it's basically you. It's just you, and for us, the main thing with boxing, with amateur boxing, is you don't really have to be attached to a gym or nothing. You could just be attached to your coach and you. You really don't have. I don't even think you. I think you do have to have a coach, but you can go by yourself. You don't have to be in a gym. Because for us, we actually never had. We did have a gym. Yeah. But for what? 3 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, 3 years. It was mainly Rudo mainly experienced the gym life. I really didn't. I maybe had 2 years being attached to a gym, but most of my fights were actually unattached. I actually didn't have a gym. I didn't have actual body to where, you know, they'd go a whole team around me where we'd go. It'd just be me, Rudo, and our father.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
I want to speak on the little comment that you said that boxing is like the loneliest sport in the world. It's one of the loneliest sports in the world. And yes, I mean, just like you said, wrestling is kind of like lonely because you're just you and your opponent just there in the match, but you have your whole team. With boxing though, like once you start leveling up or actually progressing with these national tournaments, your teammates aren't going to go if they don't qualify.
Yeah.
So it's really just going to be up to you.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, so being on it, like the main thing with amateur boxing is like, if you want to get started with boxing, if you want to, you know, have your first amateur bout and you don't really know exactly what to do, you don't really need anything else other than a USA passbook.
Yeah.
That's it. And you want to know what it looks like? Actually, I got one. I got mine right here. You know, this shit was issued in, I don't know, 2015, 2014. So it's a little beat up, but it does the job. You know, the only thing you have to do, if any tournament, any big tournament that you go to, any big, you know, even an amateur show locally, the only thing you actually have to provide is that passbook, and they will let you fight.
Or also the
medicals?
Yeah, your medicals. You like your what's it called? Oh my god, the physical. There you go. Yeah, the physicals. As well as that, you got to get that renewed every year.
Every year, yeah. So that is actually is a hassle. But yeah, you just go there, healthcare provider. That's all you have to do. But if you have this thing, then you're good. I mean, you can compete in any single tournament you want to, you know. And I competed in some good tournaments, you know. Like I said, Silver Gloves, Junior Olympics. I also competed in ringside, which unfortunately has been discontinued.
Yeah,
it's been discontinued for some time, but yeah, it's been a blast, and you know, I was privileged enough to have the opportunity to compete in these tournaments.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, I guess I'm the guy who has most of the amateur experience. You know, I had about 80 fights, 55 wins, and then you just subtract the losses from that. You can do that on your own.
That boy said, "Do the math."
Do the math. Yeah, had about 55 victories, two-time national champion, and then in other years I was ranked nationally within the top 5, 6, whatever.
Yeah. So you know, what I'm saying, me and Pablo, we were good amateur boxers. We did our thing, but we're talking about you were competing at the top level of amateur boxing.
Yeah, and then you know, just some of the guys that I competed against with, or you know, that I would see at these national tournaments. You know, now they're professionals and whatnot. So that's kind of cool to see. You know, going back on that experience, you know, right away you see who's gonna make it and who's not, and so that was pretty cool. I remember one year. I was at the ringside tournament, and I saw both Shakur and Devin Haney together, posing with the belt that they had won.
They both won it in that year, just the same as you did, right?
As I did, yeah. That was the ringside 2014 tournament.
And what weight were you at?
I was at 118.
118. And they were higher?
They were higher, but they were also older than me by like a year or two.
Yeah.
They were a different age category.
Yeah, that's another thing with amateur boxing. You cannot compete with somebody that is 2 years older than you. So, you know, it's not only weight that, you know, you can compete with, like, let's say 118, but you also can't compete with somebody that is like 7 years older than you, unless you're in the Olympics, I believe, or like
or
an
you're
adult.
an adult. Yeah, like if you're like 22, you know, you can go up against a 25-year-old, 8-year-old, 30-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but in these lower, when you're like a teenager, when you're competing in these tournaments, you're only going to be coupled in with like people that are 2 years around from your age.
Yeah. So I guess I mean, maybe like a memory that I want to share is you know, winning that my first belt was that same picture that Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson that people may have seen, you know, just with them with that belt. That was my first belt that I had gotten. If I'm not mistaken, Devin Haney was wearing the exact same belt that I won. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, should we pull it up right now?
Yeah, let's
pull up the same belt that Devin Haney won. Go get that shit, Rudo. Come on,
that was the ringside
2014 ringside.
The national.
Unfortunately, it was held in Independence, Missouri. Unfortunately, that tournament has been discontinued, which is a bummer because though that tournament was like it was one of my biggest memories as well in amateur boxing.
Yeah, same. I mean, just for the people who don't know, this was a tournament that lasted 4 days, and not only did all the people or a lot of national boxers would come, but also international teams would come as well. I remember seeing people from Ireland, Bahamas, Mexico, Canada.
Didn't Japan show up once?
Maybe, possibly. I know seeing a team from the Philippines or somewhere in the southeast or whatever. But yeah, this is the belt, Independence, Missouri, which is just a suburb of Kansas City.
Man, look at that.
Let's look at that real quick. Oh yeah, that's very nice. Very nice championship, you know.
And I won it in the open division, no novice.
No.
Yeah, so I feel like we should also give some context of what open and novice means. You know, once you enter into the amateur boxing and the amateur rankings, you will be considered a novice fighter. And what that means is that you can only be paired with people that have less than 10 fights. So when you're a novice, that means you have 10 fights or less. If you want to compete in open tournaments and open division, that means you have to have over 10 fights. Or you could also declare open, which is what Rudo did, like a gangster.
Like a gangster. So this was the silver gloves, the national silver gloves. Well, actually, this was the state silver gloves. So I won, and then in order for me to continue on to the regional portion, which is once you beat your everyone in your state, then you got to fight the champions in the surrounding states. So that's what I ended up doing, and so I had 7 or 8 fights, and then I turned pro. I turned open. I turned open.
You turn open.
I turned open. Yes.
Exactly. So usually when you go into the open division, and especially when you're competing in the silver gloves tournament in the national level, I mean, you're going up against guys that have like 40 amateur fights. You know, people that like are experienced and people that have great skills and have potential to go even professional.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, you know, when I went to the regional portion of the tournament, the first guy that I fought had he had like 15 amateur fights, so he had more than me, and then the second guy had about 40, and then he had won the national tournament, that same tournament the year prior.
So he was
the returning champ.
The returning champ, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe in that tournament, did you not beat a very big prospect in the professional rankings?
Not even prospect anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's a couple, but I guess just one of the more the one who's talked about right now, who recently just became a world champion, was Rayo Valenzuela.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we fought at a ringside tournament. Yeah, this was 2016.
Yeah. Also, Mederos or no?
No. Oh, that tournament? Are you talking about the silver gloves?
That tournament specifically.
It was Joseph Adorno.
Adorno.
So I competed at the regionals. I won, and then my first fight at the nationals was against Joseph Adorno. And at that point, he had a lot more fights than I had. He had already became a national champion by then.
Yeah, and we're talking about blessed hands.
Blessed hands, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking about big names in the that you competed, or not even fought against, but you were with, like you mentioned, you were with Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. I assume other big names, maybe even Virgil Ortiz fought at ringside, didn't he?
Oh, actually, yeah, he did. But also within that Silver Gloves of 2014, if I would, so I won my first. So it's a 3-day tournament. So I won.
4-day.
No, the National Ringside Silver Gloves tournament.
Silver.
It's a 3-day. And then so I won the first night, and then I lost in the semifinals. But if I would have won the semifinals, I would have fought Virgil Ortiz in the final.
That'd been cool, right?
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. And then he ended up winning that year.
You suck, bro.
Yeah, I lost to a dude from Florida.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, that's the thing. You had nearly 80 fights in the amateurs, which is, when you look at it now, a lot of fighters don't even get to past 50, and then they turn pro before that, because I mean, that your amateur career was what how long? Like
it was quite a bit. I mean, I did take a break, but for like a little while. But when I first had my first amateur fight, it was December of 2011.
2011. That's great. Yeah, I remember. I remember that. Yeah, because we both started at the same time.
The same time, yes.
Yeah, but I was during that time very lazy and very undisciplined.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would just say you had other objectives.
He's very lazy and very
I
indisciplined.
was very lazy. I was very fat back then. So I was like, dang, boxing, bro. That's kind of tiring.
Yeah.
Why do I want to keep doing this?
Getting hit sucks too.
Yeah. So I ended up dipping. I left I love boxing. Maybe if I would have stuck to it, I could have been, fighting, against Virgil Ortiz by now, man. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I was very, I wasn't, very mentally. It wasn't my sport at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I dropped off.
Yeah, and one thing with amateur boxing as well is it's scored a little bit differently than professional boxing, because in amateur boxing, what you have is 3 rounds. That's it. Even if you're an open fighter or a novice, even if you're, an international champion or just a regular fighter that just fight on amateur cards, you just fight 3 rounds. And what's really the main thing to consider, if you want to win your first amateur fight, what you have to do is throw a lot of punches. Don't stop.
Windmill.
Like, literally, like, what they love in amateur boxing is just you touching your opponent. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't even necessarily I guess it does have to be a little clean, but it doesn't have to be like a KO shot. In professional boxing, these fighters take their time, right? Let's look at Canelo Alvarez, one of the face of boxing. The first maybe 2 rounds, 3 rounds, he takes his time. He downloads data. He fights a bit slow. He sees his opponent's patterns, and then he adjusts later in the fight. And the reason why he does that is because there's 12 rounds in a professional fight if you're at the top level. But if you're an amateur fighter, even if you're at the top level, the only thing you have is 3-minute, 3 rounds, and that's it. So amateur judges love you being active, love you being busy. Just expel your punch, like just throw everything you have, and you will have the highest chance of winning that way.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be probably the main difference between an amateur and the professional just ranking or the way you fight. Within the amateur level, a lot of judges love to see guys who just box, just touching that quote, hit and not get hit. If you do that, that's what they love to see.
Mm-hmm. That's also a thing that infuriated me because, like I said, I fought also in the collegiate level, and I got to look at the rules for them. But I remember because I competed for the university, and they were saying like, oh, like these judges are a bit more different from the USA boxing. Like you don't even have to connect really. Like as long as you're throwing punches, even if they don't connect, like they're gonna favor you. Mm-hmm. And so that's an issue I had also, like fighting for the NCBA compared to the USA boxing, even though they do follow a lot of the same amateur rules. But another thing that comes from that, people in the amateur, for me, from my personal experience, they make me, so mad because, I'm so used to, because my main sparring, you were my main sparring partner. Yeah. And, you had, when I first started sparring, you already had like 30, 40 amateur fights. So you were more of a seasoned amateur, and your style was more crafted. Compared to a lot of the fighters that I ended up fighting, early on, was very unorthodox or very, just going at you.
Herky jerky too.
Yeah, like very, just very, just a very, like I said, a very unorthodox style, and that's what always made me so mad. Because I'm like, bro, fight. Don't fight correctly. Like I guess in the term definition textbook, but like I'd be like, bro, fight correctly, because they'd be like swinging, or they'd be like just rushing you, like. At the end of the day, it's up to me also to adjust to it. So I just suck ass, I guess. But like during the time, I'm like, bro, come on.
Yeah. It is true. I mean, like a lot of these guys. I mean, the main thing is just activity, man. That's why it's so different. Like if you watch a high level amateur fighter and you watch a high level professional fighter, they're gonna fight completely different. And it's not just I think the main thing is because of the time control. You only have 3 rounds. So, like, you have to throw punches. You have to be active, man. You have to do something. You have to sway the judges in a way.
You have to score points.
Score points, exactly. A lot of times, even in the pass book, you either win or you lose by points. That's what it is, you know. And points is punches. Points is like touching your opponent. You know, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't even have to be like setting up your punches. You just have to be kind of the aggressor. You know, amateur judges favor people who go forward and throw a lot of punches.
You know, I kind of wanted to switch a little gears right now, talking about, you know, some fights that we had, you know, because like I said, I had the unique experience of fighting for the collegiate level. And like I said earlier right now, well, a lot of the amateur, like local amateur shows or even regional amateur shows that we went to were very, I mean, the gyms that we go to compete at, they weren't really like, you know, the best looking gyms. But the thing is, was one of the big things I'd give a lot of merit to the NCBA is that they're like the locations where they would host their tournaments or their fights. They were always so nice, man. Like I had the, you know, I felt spoiled at points because I remember, especially at the Nationals. So the Nationals takes place in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we drove there and then we got there and then the hotel that we stayed at was in the same place where the tournament was taking place. Oh, yeah. So, you know, we had the comfort of just, you know, leaving our hotel room and just going down for the weigh-ins to get our medicals done and then, you know, even compete there. So we had that comfort to do. But I'm just saying, the locations that we had for the college level, they were so nice. And, like, I felt like, you know, I felt privileged at that point compared to, you know, a lot of the time where you guys fought. Mm-hmm. I remember you guys had fought like in not the very ideal place for an amateur show. It'd be not the best looking gym or whatever, but very crowded. It's just very rowdy, very, you know, a lot of points very unorganized. And yeah. I had the privilege of being able to compete a lot of my amateur career in a very organized and very clean environment.
Yeah, and even that experience doesn't even just stem from like the shows. That would also bleed into the gyms that we went to. I mean, the gyms in amateur boxing, usually there's like two different type of gyms that you can go to. You can go to a really nice gym that has a lot of money, you know, that a lot of people pay every month to maintain, and it's like a gym that isn't gonna get you ready to fight amateur. All it's gonna do is maybe burn some calories, maybe get you in a cardio, you know, do some like cardio.
Are you talking more like commercial gyms?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those gyms that aren't gonna get you prepared, man. They're just gonna, you know, they're really regulated and they're really good. They're fun to look at. You're gonna have a blast in there. You're gonna meet some cool people. But then there's also another gym that is just shit. I mean, that looks horrible. They barely have any resources. There's like 2 coaches there. There's just some kids that just go around going crazy. But these gyms are actually what's going to get you prepared to go into your first fights. You know, these gyms are like ruthless, man. You can go into it for a sparring session and be like, yo, let's do some light sparring, man. All right, bet, let's go. You guys get in the ring and he's trying to kill you.
Yeah. I agree because, you know, NCBA and USA Boxing, you know, the big difference that I fought in. I would say there's only a small handful of fighters, you know, that I experienced or saw or even fought against in the NCBA and the college level that I feel would have done well in the USA Boxing, you know, if they would have competed. Because a lot of these NCBA fighters, a lot of them are just, you know, college students who join boxing, you know, just to join, and then they get the opportunity to compete. And I remember this past spring, you know, the NCBA had, you know, their whole regional tournaments for qualifications or just random shows to get their fighters prepared. And I remember there's this one show locally here that you know, has the college amateur shows, and they also let, you know, regular USA Boxing shows, you know, regular traditional boxing gyms to join in and, you know, have their own fighters compete. And recently one of them, you know, they registered probably, I think, like 4 other fighters, and they absolutely destroyed. They're all USA Boxing. They absolutely destroyed every single NCBA college student, bro. Like, I'm not talking about just like, you know, like, oh, they beat him by points. They stopped every single one of them. No, and I'm saying, like, the quality in the USA Boxing, in the traditional gym, like you were saying, like those types of gyms, give you a lot better insight of what to expect in an actual fight. Like that type of level is the level that you should be striving to compete at compared to a lot of these college levels. I'm not saying that all of them are bad, you know, because I'm not sure how they all work, you know, because the NCBA is kind of run by a lot of the military branches. Because, you know, I competed against Navy fighters, I competed against Army fighters. There's also Air Force, and those three branches of military, those three military branches are the ones who kind of dominate the division, and they always have the best equipment, they always have the best gyms, the best sparring, so they have the best preparation. But every other college, university that competes there, they probably don't have the same resource or the same financial backing that these military branches have. So I can't really talk about the military branches. I assume they have way better preparation. But I'm just saying, like, the preparation that I saw or the gyms that I saw that don't have that same financial backing as the military branches, they got absolutely manhandled by the traditional USA boxing gyms who compete at traditional USA boxing amateur shows.
Yeah, so if you're just some kid that's trying to get into amateur boxing, you know, you like boxing, you want to get your first fight in, don't be confused if you go into a gym and it looks like shit. Don't be confused if like there's just like kids that are just like sparring to the death. I mean, these guys are literally, there's some sparring wars going on. Don't be dissuaded by that, you know. Usually those gyms are going to be the best thing to go into instead of a very commercial gym that has high maintenance and looks very pretty and looks very nice and everyone talks really good about you and, hey, you're doing good. No, go to a gym that's going to be like, hey, you're doing shit. We got to change this about you. You know, go to one of those gyms.
Go to one of the gyms that you're going to get your ass beat.
Multiple times. Because that's what happens. I remember when I first started boxing, I remember we used to go to a gym locally. We barely, I'd say in my amateur career, we only went there like the first 2 years, maybe 3 of my amateur career. But I remember in there, I'd go up against a kid who was bigger than me, he was taller than me, and he also weighed more. He'd whoop my ass every single time. Every single time. And the coaches aren't going to go in the ring and, hey, stop the fight, you're hitting him too hard. No, they're going to let the kid beat the shit out of you. So go into those gyms because those are actually going to show you, hey, this is what boxing actually can become. It's no joke. Like, they can hurt you in there, and that's what's going to prepare you.
Yeah, I would say if there's someone, you know, if you're listening to this, like, and you want to, you know, join a boxing gym, I would say maybe like a question to ask the coach would be, how often do you guys go and compete? How many fighters actually go here to this gym and compete? Because then that's going to give you a really good indication of whether it's just a commercial gym or it's a gym that actually trains fighters, and it's going to get you fight ready.
Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, so a lot of gyms, I feel like, yeah, if you're thinking about joining the gym, you know, strive for going to a gym that you for sure, you know that you're gonna get the best work, the best training, and, you know, the best preparation for a fight if you plan on competing sometime in the amateurs, because, you know, we all start somewhere, and I mean, the best way you can prepare is, you know, with your environment. You know, a lot of these gyms, I see a lot of people online, they say stuff like, you know, like someone posts a sparring clip and they're going to war. And then people say, you know, in the comment section, oh, sparring isn't meant to be, you know, that hard. You know, you're not meant to go to war in sparring. You're meant to be, you know, just work on your flaws. You're meant to work on different aspects of your game. You're not meant to go to war in your sparring, which there is some truth. You know, a lot of the time, you know, there's some moments where you should, you know, if you're trying to work on a certain aspect of your game, you should implement it in sparring, you know, and both sparring partners should be aware of that. But that's not always going to be the case, you know. Many of the times, you know, I've been in a couple wars, and you know, like it just happens because, I mean, it's a fight at the end of the day, and regardless if you yourself are just trying to work on something, like if you get hit with a good shot or you get hurt or rocked, you know, you're gonna wanna, hey, like, I'm gonna go back at him, and it happens. It just, you know, you can't really stop it. It just evolved like that. So, you know, those types of gyms that, you know, have a lot of wars like that, I would say, like, those are the best types of gyms to be joining.
Absolutely, man. Like, that's why a lot of people, like, there's an expression in boxing, you don't play boxing. It's not a game. It's not a basketball game where, you know, it's all fun and games and practice and you make good friends. No, they get rowdy in there, man. There's ego at play. You know, some guys are just gonna get into the ring and let you whoop him and you know, like, not land some punches. He's gonna get mad in there and he's gonna start swinging with some bad intentions. And that's what happens in boxing. So with these sparring, when you touch on those sparring videos, those people, they always say there is like, oh, this is too hard. This isn't what sparring is about. And I'm like, that's exactly what sparring is about. Every time that I've seen a sparring, usually these guys go hard. Usually these guys are trying to, you know, win. There's no technical winner in sparring, right? No one gets their hand raised. No one gets a record, a check mark on their record. But they do get a little ego win. You know, they're like, oh, I beat him. You know, I landed the cleaner punches. I was faster than him. I dodged more of the punches. There's an ego win at play, even in sparring. So, you know, don't be dissuaded by that and saying, oh, sparring is just, you know, tapping, let the other guy punch you. Okay, punch again, let the other guy punch you. It's not that. It's, you got to win.
Yeah, I mean, that quote that you said that people say within the comment section of a video that say, hey, you need to work on sparring should be light. You should work on your craft instead. That's better. From one aspect, I can see it. Sure, you should sharpen your skills. But second, that's not how an actual fight. That's not how an actual bout is going to be, whether it's amateur or professional. Like once everyone goes down and it's just you and you're just facing that guy on the other side of the corner, best believe he's going to kick your ass. And if you're not ready and if you've never done that, any type of hard sparring, it's not going to go good.
No, absolutely not. And if you want even more proof about this, let's look at Mike Tyson, his old sparring clips. He would beat the shit out of every sparring partner, every single one. I mean, there's videos, long videos of him knocking out sparring partners. And that was when he was a professional even, not even just amateur, because he'd knock out everyone in the amateurs. Even when he turned pro, he'd still beat the shit out of these guys. This is what people do. This is what guys do. Yeah, sparring is brutal. Don't fall into the illusion that it's just some pretty punch and then not punch. You know, I think you guys have experience about this, about gyms that just say, hey, sparring, take it easy. It's not about that.
No, I mean, the first gym that we went to locally, I mean, you know, they were on that vibe.
I remember.
They were on that vibe. You hit me and then I hit you. It's like, I mean,
did that prepare you for your first fight?
My first fight, I was not prepared. I was expecting the guy to let me hit him, but he never let me.
He didn't let you, right?
He didn't let me, so I ended up losing the fight.
Yeah.
Because I was not mentally prepared. Not ready at all. So once I had my second fight, I was a lot more, I knew what was going to go on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, yeah.
You remember that, right?
Yeah, I remember that too, yeah. I remember they also called us Morales and Barrera. Because we're the only Mexicans there.
Come on, man. That's got to be racist in there. Somewhere in there.
I didn't think anything of it. I was a little legit during that time. I was, single digits?
Yeah.
But
I was like, yeah. Yes, I do.
I was like, I don't know them, but yeah. But no, yeah, so yeah, for sure. The whole sparring aspect. I mean, a lot of people, yeah, sparring wars are real, especially more when you're traveling to another gym. Because I mean, we like we mentioned, we had the unique experience of being unattached. You know, we were never in, you know, you did the gym life for a bit, but then afterwards it was just, you know, us and our father who trained us, you know, and so we were never attached to any gym. We'd compete in an unattached form. So we'd only go sparring, you know, when we'd ask, you know, we'd get invited to go sparring by other gyms, and that happened quite frequently. So we get asked to go spar, or we'd ask, you know, we need sparring because we're preparing for a fight. So we'd go and travel to go spar at different gyms around the area. And I'm telling you right now, I see also memes or videos of people saying like, oh, when you go sparring to a different gym, and it's like very personal, right? For some reason, right? And that's the whole thing. It all falls down to the ego. And you know, because you're like, okay, like let's say you're a typical gym goer at this certain gym, and then your coach says, oh, like we're gonna have people from another gym pull up and we're gonna have sparring. you're gonna be like, okay, like these guys, like I'm gonna
Who the fuck are these
who
guys?
are these people going to my gym? Like I'm gonna whoop them, whoever they put up against me. It's not even like, it's just ego at the end of the day. So like, even if you yourself, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go in to work on my craft. Your opponent across the ring, your sparring partner may not even have that. Even if your coach tells them, hey, like light sparring, no, it's gonna get hard. People are gonna, if you get a clean shot landed on you, you're gonna, of course, retaliate back, and you're gonna try to get your lick back. And that's what happened. That's what happened a lot with us. We'd go travel to different gyms, and I mean the sparrings, they were never light. I mean they would always be hard, because at the end of the day, like you get a good shot in, and your opponent's gonna want to get a good shot in back. So then it turned into a legitimate fight in there. But that's what sparring is about, man. Like it just happens. Like people can online say, oh, like go light. That's what it should be. Work on your craft. But I mean, a lot of things can be like that. But at the end of the day, once you actually get into it, then it doesn't. It's a whole different spiel. It's a whole different story.
Yeah, and most boxers, they know this as well. I mean, Mayweather's gym, a very notorious gym, they're well known for having sparring wars, for having dogfights?
Dogfights, yes.
Dogfights, man. These guys literally go for like 20-minute rounds until someone drops.
Or no round. Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Like it's insane. Like this isn't something that's like brand new that we're bringing up. This is well known. If you're actually in the amateur world, if you've been competing there for a couple years, you actually go to a tough gym instead of like a commercial gym, you're gonna have these experiences of just like wars in there. So it's this is something that it's well known.
Well, yeah, you're gonna see also those tough gyms have the best success when it comes to amateur, because a lot of their fighters who compete or train at these tough gyms are always well prepared for whatever. Even if, let's say, they're in a fight, in the legitimate actual sanctioned fight in the USA boxing, and it's a very tough fight. I mean, there's a lot of chance that their fighters are gonna, get a second win, or they're gonna, be able to handle the toughness, the adversity of their opponent, because they've been used to training in that way, having those types of sparring. So those tough gyms, who implement a lot of hard sparring, who have very hard training sessions, those gyms always have the most success when it comes to amateurs. And a lot of the gyms also stem from like big cities as well. I mean,
yeah.
you have a lot of those boxers, a lot of fighters in those gyms with high quality, high potential. So those are obviously the best gyms to be at. But I mean, locally, like if you're not even from a big city, you're just trying to find a gym, try to aim for a gym that is actually going to push you, that's going to be tough, because the sport is tough at the end of the day. And I mean, if you're not tough yourself, then you're going to break.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. But is there anything? Before we even, and I kind of want to talk about our, because in professional boxing, we see a lot of rematches, a lot of trilogies, a lot of rivalry brewing up in the professional. And we only see that in the professional, but in the amateurs, that happens a lot. It's frequent that you, if you're competing in amateurs, you're gonna be pinned up against someone that you already fought before, maybe lost or won against, and it's a pretty common thing to happen. And I mean, I guess all of us three, Asael, Rudo, and I, we've all had our own share of similar or not similar, but
rivalries
that we've same opponents that we've gone up against. Personally, for me, I had the unique experience of never losing to my rematch. Hey. I beat the man twice, so I only had one rematch in my entire career. But I had the outcome of being the winner in both occasions, being the state champion, one of them. So I was pretty happy with that one. How about you guys? Do you guys got any big ones that you guys want to say, like big rivalries?
Yeah, I had two different sets. The first one, I fought the dude 5 times. He's a guy from Chicago. Yeah, Chicago. What was it? The first 2 I won, and then he beat me the third time. The fourth time I won, and then the very last one he beat me, but I didn't think I lost. I fought in that was that ass fighting in his home gym. His home gym was producing the show, and we fought probably in the same ring. He probably sparred in preparation for my fight.
Yeah, this is one thing. Don't even get me started on corruption in amateur boxing, man. These judges, man. If you got the hometown advantage, that is an actual real thing that can play into your favor.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean, so that rivalry stain.
Oh yeah, they started booing, didn't they?
They started booing the decision and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, we fought through a period of like within those 5 fights, it was like a period of 2 to 3 years in between then.
Shit, I remember. Yeah, we were like, oh, we have to fight. We you know, we be like, oh, who you fighting? You're like, well, I'm fighting him. You were fighting like 2 times already, bro. Like, come on, and 5 fights against the same person. That's
quite a bit.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah. And then the other one was a guy from Rock Island. I fought him 4 times. I beat him the first 3 times, and then at the very end, he took the win. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for me, I also had a couple. Looking actually back on my passbook, now I realized I had a couple of rivalries, little trilogies, little couple of fights that I fought a lot. The reason being is because I was a very small kid, so there was the pool of fighters that I could fight was very limited, you know. So I had to fight whoever was there. In my first 3 fights, I fought the same kid. So I fought the same kid 3 times, and I had 3 fights. The first time, my first ever fight, I lost to the kid. Looking back on it, I thought I won. The judges saw it a different way. Yeah. It is what it is, right? The next 2 times, I beat him, though. So I ended the trilogy with a 2-1 victory. And this is actually a kid that I ended up sparring multiple times throughout my whole amateur career. So I've actually known him quite a lot. I know him pretty well. You know, he's someone who I've, you know, shared the ring with a lot. And also, I've had a couple of other fights. You know, people from neighboring gyms in our area who I fought like 4 times. You know, a lot of these guys was thankfully because I was, you know, such a small weight, I could only fight a limited amount of fighters, and I'd fight these guys like 4 times.
Yeah, were they were just like regular amateur shows? No, not like.
Yeah, I believe I actually fought one kid in the Silver Gloves state tournament. Yeah, I believe I fought him in one of them, and I beat the shit out of him, so I got that victory. Yeah.
Yeah, those the amateur rivalries, and they're real, man. I mean, unless you know if you've been competing them, you're like, oh, I'm up against this dude again, you know. Like I'm gonna make sure I let's say that you lost the first time when you fought him, you're like, oh, I get a second shot at him. Like, no negotiation, no contract signing, no promoter bullshit. No, this is amateur, bro. Like, oh, they're free. Okay, let's put them up against each other. That's how it goes. So like, if you lost the first time, you're like, okay, second time I'm gonna get my leg back. Like, you know, I'm gonna make sure this guy pays for beating me the first time. Or if you won, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna make sure this dude does not beat me, bro. Like, cause I'm gonna whoop his ass. Yeah, that's the whole rivalry in the amateur is so fun. I mean, I only had the chance to just repeat or fight the same guy just once in my amateur career. You know, I wish I would have had more, especially against some of the military branch. I wish I would have gotten the opportunity to fight them. But yeah, like my guy that I fought, I mean, he was my debut fight, and then he was also my 3rd fight. And I remember my debut fight. I mean, I don't know about any of you guys, but it's just so different, man. Like the whole, like when you debut, because I mean, yeah, you could do like, I mean, I had already done so many rounds of sparring with Rudo, but like, you know, getting into the ring and everything, it's kind of like I don't really understand, like the feel.
It's very different. It's almost like, you know, when you're presenting in class and you go and present, there's almost like a line, and then you see everyone staring at you. I think that's kind of like the same thing.
My issue wasn't about the crowd. I mean, personally for me, every single one of my fights, I literally paid no attention to like the crowd.
Same.
I would just be locked into like my opponent in the ring, but like just the feeling that I would get, like I'm like, oh, like this is a legitimate fight, and maybe it did play some psychological effect in the performance. But regardless, when I fought my debut, when I fought this guy, you know, I was able to take away the UD win, and when I fought him the second time, you know, I was more locked in during that time, so I beat him even more convincingly in the rematch. And the thing is, yeah, like the whole aspect of, like, you know, they always say, oh, it's different when you spar compared to an actual fight, and it's very true. The feeling that you get, I don't know. It's just a whole different mind space that you fall into when you actually get inside the ring for an actual legitimate sanctioned fight. And I mean, it's one that, you know, it either makes you or breaks you. You know, a lot of fighters. I mean, if you're in the amateurs, if you're not able to overcome that boundary of mental warfare, you know, when you step inside the ring, then the chances of you actually becoming a potential or a legitimate, you know, prospect, let's say if you want to dive into the sport even deeper, I mean, it's practically zero.
Yeah, they say boxing is 90% mental and 10% physical. And that's absolutely true, man. Like, it's really, you could be really well prepared. You can have a lot of sparring. You know, you can have all the cardio. You can do all the runs, all the jump rope, all the bag work, all the pads. You do all of that. But if you get in the ring and you're, like, really nervous, it's going to affect your performance, man. Like, you're not going to perform your 100%. And that's the main thing that happens. Everyone talks about it, you know. All these big athletes talk about it. They might not even be the best in their gym, but they're the best in performing when the lights are the brightest. And that's what's most important.
And I feel like also, you said your first fight was kind of like different. It's also really interesting how, in this case, the amateur bout, only 3 rounds, but it feels like you have to take a few hours before to prepare. Your coach wrapping up your hands, you put it on your uniform, getting checked by the doctor, and all that stuff. You got to do all these things before you actually step up into the ring. Those are the things that people who just watch the sport don't really normally see.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, bro. Low key, I'm gonna be very honest right now. One of the things that would always make me mad, or not make me mad, but would kind of, you know,
make you mad,
like a pet peeve was, you know, even in sparring or even in fights, like the whole aspect, you know, at amateur you gotta wear the headgears. Also, like, I mean, I wore 10-ounce gloves during my fights, so that was an issue, but it was the headgear mostly. I mean, a lot of these guys, you know, who you would see, you know, who just rush you, you know, be kind of a little reckless, you know, their kind of style. That would make me upset. Not upset. That'd make me mad. Because I'm like, you would not be like this if it was no headgear. Like, I'm like, right, you're only doing this because you know that you have some type of protection in your head, which is, you know, when I sparred you, it was more clinical, more technical, more of a seasoned fighter, more professional base compared to a lot of these amateur fighters who I'd fight who'd, you know, could crush my my standard, you know, of, like, you know, being an actual technical fighter. So I'd be a bit more difficult in that aspect. But like I'd be like, I remember there's this one time where I fought at one of the college shows, and his style was just going towards you. Like, he just, like, from the opening bell, he just rushed me, and I was like, right. And like I said earlier, like, it's up to me, the fighter, to make adjustments in the ring to
neutralize it,
yeah,
to capitalize or to overcome the aggression that he brought. But, you know, I guess I'm fucking ass, so like I wasn't able to do it, but I still won the fight, so yeah. But anyways, regardless, I'm like, bro, you're only this confident because you got the headgear on. Like, I was landing clean shots on him too, and I'm like, bro, if this right hook gets you again without the headgear, I know you're going down. You're not gonna, you know, be as reluctant. You're gonna be hesitant, like, rushing in, and that's one of the things I never really liked about the amateurs. I mean, of course, the protection, you know, with the headgears, and that's one of the main things. One of my main critiques when I was fighting amateurs, I would always say a lot of people really have a lot of confidence, or a lot of, you know, they'd be really, like, you know, willing to go in risk because they knew that, like, if they got hit, like, they at least had some type of protection, hence the headgear, to be able to reduce or minimize the punishment that they'd receive.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between professional and amateur boxing. You know, not only from headgear and bigger gloves, but also to the rounds and, you know, the type of style that you fight. And one of us actually had the very fortunate opportunity to go professional and experience that professional ranking. Spoiler alert, it's Rudo. But I think that's a tale for another time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Rudo professional story. Yeah. I mean, you had a very long amateur career, multiple time national champion, multiple time regional and state champion in the amateurs, and, you know, you had the opportunity to go pro and compete there, and not only just, you know, just in the local or in the regional pro shows, but also in the grand stage, and ESPN and Top Rank even. So but like Asa said, that's a tale for a different day. This episode's getting a little too long at this point. I feel like a part 2 is much needed to more dive into your professional history, your professional story. Because I personally, I know you got a lot of insight, a lot of experience in your professional story, but I got also, because I was in your corner for a lot of
shit. Yes. I was too.
You were too. Yeah, we both, all three of us have professional stories, and so I think that's due for a different episode.
Yeah.
But for right now, I think just talking briefly about our family lineage and about our experience fighting is I think is a well suited episode for this one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so 50,000 likes if you want to hear Rudo's story.
Nah, make it 100, man.
100,000 likes right now.
Likes. Yes, sir. Do you guys got anything else you guys want to say? Talk? No? You guys good?
Any advice you guys want to give to someone who wants to start boxing?
I would say the main thing is have a Ryan Garcia type of left hook. No Devin Haney chin. And Terrence Crawford IQ. And I think you should do well in the amateurs. How about you, Asa?
Yeah, I'd say the main thing you want to have as an amateur fighter is the willingness to fight. You're gonna fuck up. You're gonna get your ass kicked in sparring. There's gonna be a very big learning curve that you're gonna have to go over. But if you really want to, get good, if you want to actually improve as an amateur fighter, it's gonna take some time. And don't be dissuaded, even if you don't have a gym. For the majority of our amateur career, we were fucking training in our basement. We literally did not have a gym.
Yeah.
We would be training in our house, in our basement. So the only thing you need to succeed as an amateur fighter is to have some balls.
What I want to say is, if you just have a pair of gloves, a dream, and big balls, with those 3 things, you can get very far in this sport.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, yes, a lot of people online were asking, questioning, who we were, if we've ever gotten inside the ring, and I hope this special episode give you guys an insight of who we are, of what we do, of what we did back in the amateurs. And I would just want to say this, man. A lot of the people in the influencer scene, when you look at Misfits, Waleed, Dean the Great, Lil Cray Cray, Yuddy Gang, a lot of these guys started off in the amateurs. And I mean, like this episode just showed you, I've been in the amateurs. I've competed in the nationals and the regionals in the state. I have the same qualifications as a lot of these Misfit fighters. And I personally 100% believe and very confident in saying this, that I would stand toe-to-toe with every single one of them. And not only would I stand toe-to-toe, I'm 100% confident that I would beat every single one of those top Misfit fighters. So Misfits, Mams Taylor, every single one who watches part of that sector, part of that scene, I am officially tipping my name into the hat, and I am officially putting myself into the scheme of the influencer scene. So take it as you will. You guys know my credibility, you know my credentials, you know everything that I bring. The only thing you guys don't know is how I fight. So second that you guys put me inside that ring, I can guarantee you 100% it will be the most explosive, the most dynamic, the most incredible fight that you will ever witness in the influencer scene. So I am officially tipping my name into the hat, and any one of the Misfit fighters, anyone from that scene can absolutely get the smoke. So this was me, Pablo, and I am with Rudo and Asa, and this was a very special episode of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.